Okay, so this isn't the video I wanted to make, but at this point in time, I don't really have the motivation to make the proper video I was planning on. And I didn't want to keep anyone that was interested in the details of this project waiting too long, so I'm just going to make very haphazard, quick and dirty showcase. So here we go. To start, all of the designs that I'll be showcasing operate using the same mechanics. You've got soul sand that propels you up, and above you, above your head, is another soul sand block that keeps you in place when you push the button in the back. Piston retracts the soul sand, and you're on the next floor. And it stacks, so of course the next soul sand block is keeping you in place for the second floor, and the one we just retracted put back in place to propel us upward further. And we're on the third floor. This is the drop chute module. Press the button, you go down. I'll show you more details in a second. But yeah. All of these operate on the same, it's all the same stuff. We've got the scale of these modules. These three here are the smallest I have. They are slightly different. This one specifically, the smallest I have. I'm very proud of this one. And I'll show off the redstone very quick. So for the Ascension, we have just the button in the back. We have this trapdoor here to prevent water from flowing into the button. Simple. Doesn't need to be a trapdoor, it can be anything. Press the button, it retracts this piston here, which retracts the soul sand. These stair blocks are waterlogged to make sure that when this soul sand block is retracted, water flows into place, and it's another source block that allows the soul sand to continue to propel you upwards. And the redstone from the button here is a block. Redstone dust there, activates this, deactivates this torch, deactivating this piston. And that's it for this. And all of the designs I'll be showing, this Ascension module is almost completely the same stuff. This trapdoor in the back here is waterlogged, so that when you press the button and this opens, the water stops flowing, and this also opens and you drop down. For the water being here, it's to soften your fall from greater heights. Simple stuff. Out the back of this button is just some redstone dust. Simple. This upside down stair block is to prevent the water from this waterlogged trapdoor from breaking the redstone, but also to allow this redstone dust to connect into this block, which activates this trapdoor. They're all pretty much the same. So, changes from the other units I'll show. This is a side button, slightly smaller in depth. This is a front button, a little more in depth. Same functions. Can be a stone button, can be a wood button, same thing. And from here we have redstone torch, gets deactivated from the button into this block, activating the redstone, deactivating the piston. This is the same as that one. And this one, we have the stair blocks are front to back, and front button with an observer. This is making use of a one-tick pulse, and because the button has two states in which it's activated, when it's pushed in and comes out, it activates the observer twice, triggering the piston once to push the soul sand out of the way, and when the button is ready to push again, it activates again, pulling the soul sand back into place. Simple. This is the smallest one I have. It's only a few blocks in depth and wide. Yeah, and this dissension unit is the same. I am aware that magma blocks can be used in the same block space for these types of elevators, but personally the magma blocks are just so slow, I don't like it. So they're two separate modules. None of the redstone conflicts, so they don't need to be as close as they are. They can be as far apart as they want, across from each other. That's the same for all the units I'll be showing. These next units are identical in functionality to the ones I just showed, except these are fitted with pulse extenders, which keeps the piston retracted for longer. Same deal. I think these are fitted with pulse extenders though. No, they don't need to be. So those are the same. That's the side button, there's the front button. Pulse extender, that sort of thing. This is the smallest one I have that includes a pulse extender, as far as depth is concerned. Okay. We'll just give a quick flyby of the dimensions. The wool is showing where the redstone is, and the walls outside of it are just showing just what it encompasses. What is this? Alright, this is a note block. Just an extra. You can only make use of a note block with a pulse extender in the unit. So over here, got the side button, same thing. Into this block comes out activate this dust with two comparators, and aligned into another block with some dust, block, redstone torch, deactivates the piston, you get the idea. This dissension unit, completely the same, no changes. This is a front button, same deal, very straightforward. Pulse extender right here, two comparators, redstone torch next to the piston. Same. Note block. It's a little less depth to the unit, smaller, a little bit. And the note block is being read by this observer, into another observer, into another observer, into a repeater with one tick, you can see there, into the block with the redstone dust, into the pulse extender, into the block with the torch, activated into this block, activating this dust, deactivating this piston. You get the idea. Dissension unit, same. No block. Making use of the one tick for this, which means the stair blocks need to be front to back. This is a little complicated. Into this note block, or you hit the note block, goes into this, is read by this observer, into this block, which is read by this repeater, again with the tick delay set like that. This block with the redstone dust and the pulse extender, into this lamp, which allows for, because the note block only can be read once by the observer, this lamp needs to be activated twice. So that's what it does. The on state activates this observer pushing the soul sand, and then when the pulse extender runs out, the lamp turns off, also activating the observer and pulling the soul sand back into place. Okay. And again, dissension module, it's the same. Now we get into the interesting stuff. We have what I like to call the express unit, which allows you to reach the top and bottom floors, respectively, from any other floor. And we're on the top floor. You can do it from any floor. top floor. Same with this dissension unit. Bottom floor. You can do it from any other floor. But you can also just pick one floor at a time, just like the other units I showed. These are all making use of the same functionality with different arrangements of the redstone. So for this one, I have pulse extenders on both. Or was it? Let's see. Yes, the pulse extender is built into the extent for the express module and regular use. And for this one, they're separate. So there's no pulse extender for the regular use, but there is pulse extender for the express module. Pulse extender is needed for the express module to work effectively. And you might need to increase the pulse depending on how high you bring it. Same with this. Actually, yeah. What I have here is a hybrid, I guess. So for the unit that has the pulse extender built into both, and the unit that has them separate, I took the one that was separate for the dissension unit, and the one that was included with the ascension unit, and put them into this, which is the best of both. So you don't need a pulse extender on regular use for the dissension unit, but it's nice to have for the ascension unit. This is modified, meaning it's got a no block. Pulse extender, express module, easy. So some of the redstone. We've got the note block here, which is being read through an observer into a block, into a repeater with the tick delay set, as you can see, into the pulse extender with the two comparators, into another block, with a redstone torch just under there, into another block, into the piston, which pulls and pushes the soul sand. Got the two stair blocks that are waterlogged, and then this is the express module that connects into it. So, from that button we've got redstone into a repeater. Doesn't need any tick delay, but it also goes into a torch tower. And I'll show right here. It's just a simple torch tower for as many floors as you need, and it hooks into each module as you see. If there's a height difference between your floors, you might need to account for that with your torch tower, just as long as the signal reaches where it needs to reach. You'll probably figure that out. And then for the descension unit, this is completely unchanged, except for this. We have a repeater here. There should be a stair block right here to keep the water from flowing, but I didn't put that here. But yes, there should be a stair block here. Yes, this repeater with the tick delay is meant to ensure that you don't accidentally, if you're falling from a great height, land on this trapdoor before this water has flowed into this block space. It's a very, very slim occurrence, but this is just a safety precaution. You don't need it, but I encourage you to include it. And then for the express module, it's a bit messy. From this redstone, from this button, we've got the redstone dust on top of the piston. Now this is a good time to say this is game version 1.16.4. Some of the units I'll be showing probably work in versions of 1.15, but most of them will only work in 1.16 or thereafter. But yes, activating this piston into the observer, which brings the signal down for any floors underneath. Redstone dust into this block with this repeater, again with the tick delay. That's important because it won't read from the from the observer, if there is a unit above this one, it's reading the signal from this observer down, and it won't read unless it's got this repeater here at this tick delay. Into this block space, which activates this pulse extender. Into this block space, which is the same. So I've colored it with the wool, you can see that. And it just goes in the main unit. You can see it's separate. The blue wool is the pulse extender, the orange wool is the single use. And with this, the orange wool is the pulse extender, and the blue wool is the express module. And this is the next. So these both have the pulse extenders built into the single floor use, as you can see there. And you saw there, this trapdoor closed before this one, giving it just enough time for the water to flow out into this block space in case you fell at just the right time. You get the idea. So we'll start here. This button tracks the piston. From this button, we've got the redstone line into this pulse extender. Don't need a repeater, nothing like that. Into this block space with the redstone torch, block, redstone dust, piston. For the pulse extender, we have just behind that button, redstone dust. This is a slab for if you're building this, if you're using this module at the minimum height, which would be, I think, 4 blocks in between each floor. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 blocks in between each floor. This needs to be a slab so that this redstone dust does not activate the piston underneath it. That would cause problems. This goes into torch tower, carry the signal up with a repeater that connects into the main line with the pulse extender. This white wool is actually part of a add-on module I included. Get rid of that real quick. So we've got a repeater down here that hooks into the main line, pulling that signal into this block, into this redstone dust, activating this trapdoor. That is for the pulse extender to keep this trapdoor up. This is just an optional thing. I like it because you can kind of see if you got this activated and someone else is walking in to see, oh, well, the trapdoor is already up. That means this system's active. That sort of thing. And for the express module for this side, got the piston into this observer down to carry the signal downward. Got the redstone dust into this repeater with a tick delay. That's important. Block, redstone dust into the pulse extender, running into the main line with the repeater for safety. What did I have? Well, it's on this next one. So you'll notice, I think it was, yes, it's this ascension module that I had over on that one. And for this, we have the descension module here that was over on the first unit as well. For this, keeping the pulse extender separate from the ascension module. How you mix and match these units is up to you. I'm just showing what I've got here. So from this button, we've got the redstone dust here into this block space, with the redstone torch, into this block with the redstone dust piston. Just like that. And for the express module, got dust coming out the back. This is a slab. You want to make sure this is a slab if you're building this at minimum height of 4 blocks. If you've got another module just above this, minimum height, you need to make sure that's a slab to make sure it doesn't interfere with the piston. Redstone dust into a block, torch tower. If you've got different heights between floors, you need to modify it. And then repeater into the pulse extender here. This needs to be a repeater to make sure this signal doesn't flow backwards. for, well, I've got another unit to show that'll explain that a bit. But yes, keeps the signal separate. Pulse extender, part of the express module. I showed this half of the unit in the first unit there. And this one, I think this is the one that operates a little differently. I'll show that real quick. So, the way this is set up is that each floor closes up much more slowly, or it doesn't start to close up into the floor below it. It's, I think, a little smaller. It's 2, that's 3. So that's 3 wide, and that's 2 wide. That's 3 wide, and that's 3 wide. So it's a little smaller in terms of width, but if you've got a lot of traffic, I suppose, this might not be the best unit to be using. So they all slowly close up. This close up much more slowly compared to the other units. So see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, they all close up about the same time. These close slower, same with the dissension. And for the redstone, this is without the pulse extender hooked in. We've got the piston, or we've got the button into this block space with the redstone torch into this block with a piston, sticky piston, that pulls this block out, shutting off the signal from this redstone torch, retracting this piston. Just like that. For the express module, we've got a button into another slab. It's important if you're building this at minimum height, so make sure not to interfere with the piston below it. And we've got the pulse extender set up right here, 2 comparators with the torch tower near the back here. And yeah, signal from this pulse extender into this block with the redstone torch. You'll see. You see. And for this dissension module, we've got the safety repeater, same principles. For the express module, we have redstone dust coming out like so, and this activates from this block space this piston with the redstone block, pushing the signal down. Again, if you've got varying heights between floors, you'll want to arrange the redstone differently to account for that. But yeah, goes into this pulse extender, into the main line here. This block is important to make sure that the redstone doesn't connect up with this pulse extender. Unless you want it to, that's also optional, whatever you want to do. And again, there should be a stair block here to prevent this water from flowing out. Did I forget that on all of these? Yeah, I did. Or maybe no, it doesn't need to be a stair block. It'd be a solid block. That's what it was. You have a solid block on these. And that's all the express modules. When I started this project, this is where I was going for, because I didn't think I had what it took to make quote-unquote proper elevator design. I figured it out. So, we'll not start with that one. We'll start with this one. We have in the truest sense, an elevator. You can pick whatever floor you want to get to from any other floor. Doesn't matter. You can get to whatever floor you need to from any other floor. Simple stuff. We've got 4, 5, 4, and 3. Floor 2 is just you walk in, press the button, and you're there. Floor 2. Floor 5. It's kind of loud, but floor 5. Floor 2. Floor 2. All of these designs do work in survival. Just putting that out there. That's why the water is there. Survival Java Edition, that's also important. Version 1.16.4 at the time of recording this. So, that is the design for all of these. I've got two, actually. One is with an indented entrance, as the modules across the walls, like so, and the other is a flat entrance, like so. I did that because if you were going to expand the number of floors you had, you'd take into account where you were going to expand that, if they were going to be, if you had the depth to support that, or if you had the width to support that. I've got modules for all of that. And again, as I showed, I took the best halves of certain units. I put them into my favorites, what I would recommend using. So for this, we have the pulse extender included in the single floor use. And for these, we have pulse extender not included for single floor use. I took the not included for the descension module and the included for the ascension module and put those together. Okay, so for this line, all of these are using doors to transfer signal. So we've got doors to transfer the signal. Yeah. So you saw indented entrance, flat entrance. And these over here are flat entrance, but what was this one? Oh, okay, yeah. So these two are this, yeah. So these are flat entrance with the pulse extender included, pulse extender not included. And then this is a hybrid of the two. The descension module not including the pulse extender, ascension module including the pulse extender. Over here. This is the same thing, except it has a variable pulse extender, or a modified echo hopper clock, I suppose. I'll try to include some links in the description for other things, including the video I found this on. We'll start over here, though. So, we've got a note block to push. This includes, so this is the hybrid I'm showing here. This one has the pulse extender included. That's how I have the note block feature. Read into this observer, 3 observers, reading into this repeater with the tick delay set like so. In this block with the pulse extender like so. These need to be slabs so that they don't interfere with the pistons. If you've got multiple floors at the minimum height, I think it's still 4 blocks, or is it 4 blocks? Yeah, it's 4 blocks. 4 blocks tall, minimum height. So, those slabs are important to that. And for that, pulse extender goes into this block with the redstone torch. Another block here, redstone dust, activating and deactivating this piston with the soul sand. For the floor selection, from this button, we get a signal through this redstone wire here. Now, this redstone wire is actually built into the wall between floors, like so. You can only make use of that because there's a floor here. Keep that in mind. From this signal, we get this into a hopper. Now, I made this change a little recently. This is a hopper because it can, from this observer, can read a redstone signal from this hopper, but this hopper cannot transfer the signal itself. I changed this out from a note block because it was having trouble with this piston here. It wasn't much of an issue, but I changed it anyway. So this observer can read the change to this hopper from this redstone signal. And from that observer, we've got a solid block here. And from that solid block, we have a note block right there. From that note block, we read into another observer, into another observer, into a solid block, into a piston, into this redstone block. When this pushes out, it activates this pulse extender, and then eventually it will retract it, like so, allowing the signal to fade. And that is for the single floor. Well, it's for the multiple floors. Out the back of these buttons, I have doors. These doors, I'm using them because they take up 2 block spaces, and they don't transfer signal or side-by-side signal like pistons do. So I'm using doors here. And you build them up in much the same way. From this door, being read into this observer, into a solid block. From that solid block, you've got the redstone line just out the back, in between the floors. But above that is where the next set of doors is set up to carry the signal up further. So, just as you had the button and the door outside the back, you've got the door and the button on the next floor here. And really, you just want to cancel the signal for whatever floor you're trying to stop at. So, for the 3rd floor, got the signal from this door reading up, and the next door reading up, and this stops at the 2nd floor. So it activates the 2nd floor, allowing you to stop at the 3rd floor. Make sense? I hope so, because this is all I'm recording right now. So that's for the Ascension module. Same thing for all the units I'm going to show after this. You just cut the signal at the floor before the floor you want to stop at. So if you're getting to the 3rd floor, you want to cut the signal at the 2nd floor. Or you want the signal to activate the 2nd floor, but not the 3rd floor, if that makes sense. So that was the Ascension module. For the Descension module, we have the regular 1 floor unit thing. Safety repeater there, same thing. Could be a solid block right here, block the water, you get the idea. And then for floor selection, we've got doors again. So, doors out the back, observer reading into the next block, and just underneath this block would be the next set of doors for the next floor. And we've got the redstone line, again, built in between the floors. Show that. Right there, underneath, just between the floors. So, if you can't accommodate that in some way, you'll want to look at another design. And let's see. From this redstone line, we've got another repeater with the tick delay set like that. And remember that, it's important. Into this block, which activates this pulse extender here, leading into this block, into this redstone signal, which reads into the main line. And yeah, make sure there's this block space underneath. This is just a simple 2x3 pulse extender redstone dust. And I think that's it. Again, cut the signal when you don't need to stop at certain floors. Hope the audio for this is okay, because I don't want to record all of this a second time. See it? See it? See? 2 floors activated, 3rd floor is what we stop at. That was the hybrid. From that hybrid we have, okay, so this is the Descension module, same as what I showed over there. This is the Ascension module, which has the pulse extender built into single floor, wait. Oh, no. This is the Ascension module, from this. The descension module is what we'll be looking at. This ascension module is the same as that one. This is different. This is with the pulse extender built in. So from this, it pulls into this pulse extender. This repeater does not have a tick delay, doesn't need it, but it does need to be a repeater, because otherwise the redstone dust would interact differently, I think. I don't remember. And so, this is pretty much the same, except for this repeater here, which has the tick delay, into this block, which is then activating this pulse extender, and from this line into the main line. Hope that makes sense. And then this dissension module is the one from the hybrid. This ascension module has the pulse extender separate, I think. Yes, this is the one with a separate pulse extender. So from this button is read into this observer, activating this piston with the 1 tick delay, or the 1 tick pulse, pulling this block out, cutting the signal from this redstone torch, deactivating this piston. See it? Okay. And then this is pretty much the same as what I showed earlier. Redstone dust into this hopper, into this observer, the solid block, and the note block. From that note block, read through this observer, another observer, solid block, piston, sticky piston, with the redstone block, which activates pulse extender. Like that. And again, you just cut the signal for the floor you want to stop at. And this is for the flat entrance. Got the note block, got the pulse extender built in on this one. So from that note block, we've got an observer reading into a block with the repeater with the same tick delay you see here, into the redstone dust, into the pulse extender. And again, depending on how many floors you have with these units, you may need to increase the delay on these pulse extenders if you're going from, say, the first floor to the top floor. Depending on the number of blocks in between, you want to make sure the signal for this pulse extender is keeping every other floor in between open so that you can get to the top floor. That's important. So, from this pulse extender, we got a block here. From that block is the redstone torch right here, into this block space that activates this piston. And for this, we got the doors again. From that button, we got the doors outside the back with the observers just above them into solid blocks, which activate this redstone line here, which then is being read by this repeater with the tick delay, as you can see, into this block space, and then it goes into the pulse extender. And as for the ascension unit, for the descension unit, so I think this is, yes, the pulse extender is built in to the single floor. You can see here. Got the safety repeater right there. It's also just important to have a repeater here. This is mandatory for this unit because this redstone line will be an issue otherwise. So that's built into the pulse extender. We've got it coming out this way, down this way, right there, block space here. Yeah, just keeps the pulse like that. And for the pick a floor, multi-floor module, as I'm calling it, got the observer with the door here into the solid block, activating this redstone line, into this repeater with the tick delay, into this block space which activates the pulse extender. This block here is important because otherwise this redstone line here will interfere with the pulse extender. Effectively, see if this wasn't here, this would never shut down. So you need it here to make sure the signal shuts down eventually. And these are slabs that are meant to prevent the signal from carrying unnecessarily in other ways. I don't know how to detail that right now. But yeah. Pick a floor, that sort of thing. These both have the pulse extenders built into the single floors. And you cut the signal all the same. So you want to get to the third floor, cut the signal at the second floor. Got the first two floors activated, third floor does not activate. So you get to the third floor, right there. And as you can see, fourth floor. They all work, and to the best of my knowledge, almost every single unit I'm showing is spam protected. So you can push this button as many times as you want. You can press any button as many times as you want, and will have no adverse effects on the redstone. Where did I leave off? I was here. For these, this unit, pulse extender is separate for both of them. So there's a shorter delay if you're going up one floor or down one floor, and a longer delay if you're moving up multiple floors. So, from this note block, we've got two observers here into a solid block, and this is, it's my attempt at I'm trying to emulate a button, because, that's the thing, I can't have a button in these flat units, because I needed the piston towards the back. Because of the, well, yeah, it needs to be towards the back because otherwise I wouldn't be able to fit it with how close these buttons are to everything else. So this is a no block. Can't be a button, so I tried to emulate a button tick delay, or not tick delay, button pulse. You get the idea. So from those two observers, we've got a solid block here, activates this redstone here, but it also activates this repeater here. From that repeater, we've got it activating into this redstone line, pushing the redstone block here. But this also goes into a delayed, two sets of repeaters at max tick delay, into a set of blocks that go into the same signal that holds this piston out. Or, I guess it doesn't hold. It ticks once, pushing the redstone block out. It ticks the second time to pull it back in. I can't use a button here, so I need to do that. And from the floor selector, got the doors at the back, observers reading out of those doors into the solid blocks. Redstone line here, which is read through this repeater, tick delay, into the solid block, which reads into this pulse extender down here. This was a bit of a challenge to fit, but yes, we've got the pulse extender right here, into this block space here, which is read through this signal here, into another repeater, doesn't matter what the tick delay on this is, that runs into this, pushing and pulling this signal here. So once this turns off, it will retract the redstone block again. Okay, for the descension module, pulse extender is separate. Got the safety repeater here, also just mandatory for this unit because of this redstone line here. Same thing. And for the floor selector, we've got the doors being read by these observers, which they're sitting on. Solid blocks into this redstone line. Repeater with the tick delay going out into this pulse extender. There's a slab here at the end of this line. That's important You're doing it at minimum height so it doesn't interfere with the floor underneath it unnecessarily. And we've got this solid block here. Important to keep these signals separate. And this runs into another block here, which hooks into the main line. And that's it. Cut the signal at the floor you want to stop at. All the same good stuff. Then we've got here, and I'll try to show the different dimensions of the units. As you can see here, some of them are one block more in depth, one block, maybe a few blocks in width, that sort of thing. You kind of see the majority of these are different dimensions, depending on what you need, what you can accommodate, that sort of thing. Where did I leave off? I did that one, so we did this one now. I think this is just a hybrid, so we might skip this. So it's got the descension unit from this one. It's got the pulse extender separate. From this one, pulse extender is included from this unit, or the ascension unit. This is just the hybrid. This one has the Etho hopper clock modified thing. So, from that note block, do an observer, a solid block, redstone torch for this piston. Right? Right. But it also activates this redstone dust, which I'm sure there's a term for it, but it slightly activates this piston, which, how was that? I can't really describe it. Activates this whole system, really. This is just the timer, pulse extender, really. So we got some items in here. This is a regular piston. This is a sticky piston. Redstone block over two hoppers facing into each other. We've got two comparators facing at the back. Block with the redstone dust. Block with the redstone dust. That activates each piston. And for the floor selector, got the door out the back with the observers reading into that. Solid blocks, redstone line. From that line, we've got a repeater. Oh, that's what it was. So, from the observer that's reading from this note block, you can see right here, we have another observer right here reading into this line that winds around to activate this piston. This is the piston that needs to be, just needs any kind of block update to activate, like that. Anything. So we have a redstone signal doing just that. This repeater does not need a tick delay of anything, and as long as this is activated, the timer starts. With this design, it allows for more controlled pulse extender, but the clock needs to reset completely before you can use the system again. So hitting this as many times as you want is not going to change that it's going to turn off at the same time. That is the one downside to this design, but overall I like it. For the descension unit, I think the pulse extender is separate. Yes, it is. Separate pulse extender, got the safety repeater with the same tick delay. Good stuff. For the floor selector, got the doors being read by these observers. This was kinda a little challenging for this first, because I have these so close. I have this as compact as I can be. I needed a repeater to read from this block into this block with another repeater that reads into this, and finally get the signal into the main line here. from this main line, we read into this repeater with this tick delay into the main piston for the modified etho hopper clock. So activates this, and I have fewer items in this for the descension unit than I do have the heavy ascension unit, because you're falling the descension unit. You don't need as much time to delay that. You're going to be faster than the redstone signal can carry, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, we've got the regular piston, redstone block, sticky piston. This is a sticky piston. 2 hoppers facing into each other with some items inside, with 2 comparators facing onto blocks with redstone dust on top. And this signal is being read from... Where is that signal being read from? I think it's... Oh, okay. So it's being read from this redstone dust into the main line here. Right. Why didn't that activate? Huh. That's a problem. Well, I guess I'll have to troubleshoot that. Does this one work fine? It should. I don't know why it wouldn't. I don't remember this not working, so... Wonder... Does it change if I have a block here? No. I think the signal strength isn't strong enough to activate this trapdoor here. Or maybe... No, it's still not activating. Well, I'll fix that for the next, because this is just a draft video. Oh, and these are... Great. So that does it for this line. This next line is identical in almost every way, except instead of doors, which are loud, so if you don't like loud, then we've got no blocks instead, which aren't as loud. This video is going to be long. It's not quite as loud. Same functionality. However, I think for most of these, they're a little wider. So before it was like 2 blocks wide, after these are like 3 blocks wide. 3 blocks wide. This is the hybrid. I'll show this one first. But yeah, same functionality, pick a floor. 4. 4, 4. Alright, cool. Indented entrance, flat entrance. This one's a hybrid. And this is another, it's a Eco Hopper Clock modified. And we'll start down here. There's the pulse extender included. Hit the button, or no block. Read into this observer, and another observer with a repeater with the tick delay into the pulse extender. Redstone dust here. Deactivates the piston, activates the piston. Now I don't know why, but this I didn't need to use a hopper in place of a note block. Had no issue with that. Yeah, no issue with that. So this can be a hopper, it can be a note block, could probably even be a solid block. No, not a solid block. It needs to be something like this, note block. Reads into the observer, solid block, nothing underneath here. Because we're reading directly out of that solid block. With this repeater, with the tick delay like so, solid block hooks into the main pulse extender. That's that. Showed that? Yep. Okay. This Same thing, reads out the back. Got a repeater here, doesn't need a tick delay. And we've got the pulse extender, right like so. And for the floor selector, we got reading. Now, I don't know why, because it doesn't make sense to me, but when I was designing these, for whatever reason, a button will activate a note block twice, which doesn't make sense to me. You'd think the signal active would activate the note block, but when the signal is cut, that also activates the note block. Or at least to some degree, that the observer can detect that change. So from these observers, we've got a solid block that also activates this note block to carry the signal down. And for the floor, we've got this redstone line here into this repeater with the tick delay, like so, into this block, which is the main line. That's the descension module. I showed the ascension module. For this unit here, we've got the pulse extender separate. So for single floor use, less delay. For multiple floors, got more delay. On the button, we're reading to observer. The sticky piston just above that pulls this block out of the way, cutting the signal to this piston. Got the redstone torch here. That's single floor, multiple floors. We got the redstone dust here. Need a hopper here, read by this observer into this solid block. It's read by this repeater with a tick delay. Solid block, redstone dust into the pulse extender. You need a slab here if you're building these at minimum height. And that activates the main line. Again, you just cut the signal for how many floors, what floor you need to get to, all that good stuff. Descension module. This has a bit more, for this unit, a bit more delay on the tick, or the repeater, for this one. Safety repeater, important. Make sure to keep a block here to keep the water from flowing out. You know what to do. If you've watched this far into the video, that is. Floor selector, read through snow block, observer, solid block, which reads into the redstone line at the back, and into this note block, which carries the signal down to the next floor. I've got a repeater here from this line here, just in between floors, with a tick delay, solid block, into this pulse extender down here. To this block here, up, and into the main line. Okay. I think that one over there is just the hybrid. Let's see. Pulse extender separate for the descension unit on this one. Pulse extender included for the ascension unit. Now we have the flat entrance. This is with the pulse extender included. From the snow block, we've got two observers into this line here. Okay, from this line, goes into this repeater with a tick delay, into this block with the pulse extender here. And from this block, we've got the redstone torch powering this piston. Deactivate the torch, deactivate the piston. From the floor selector, we've got no blocks at the back, read by these observers, and read by these observers, which read into the main line. This line is to carry the signal. Observer, solid block, no block, observer, solid block. This is the next floor that you would have. That was the ascension module. The descension module, pulse extender is included. From the signal, goes into this max tick delay repeater. Yeah. Make sure that works. That's important for safety. But it also runs into the pulse extender out the back here. See it? It's there. And for floor selection, the note block, read into the observer, read into a solid block, which activates the note block again, which is read by these observers, into this redstone line here, which goes up into this repeater with the tick delay, and it runs into the main line. And this carries the signal down to the next floor. Okay, next. This is with the pulse extender separate. I think I had to emulate a button press on this one as well. Yes, I did. So from this note block, we've got two observers here, reading into this block, which activates this redstone dust and this repeater, which effectively activates this piston with one tick twice, pushing and then pulling the redstone block, activating and deactivating this piston. This is a max tick delay repeater. Don't remember if I showed that on one of the other units or if it was even there. Let me check. I think it was one of these. Yeah, max tick delay on this repeater for this other flat unit with the doors. This one's got the note blocks. This one, yeah. No. Yeah, this one, I think. Yeah, emulate the button press. So that's for the single floor use. For multiple floors, got a longer delay. It's got a pulse extender there. From those buttons, go into these note blocks, go into these observers. You get another line of observers reading horizontally from those into this redstone line here. Or into these blocks, the redstone line above it, leading into this repeater with the tick delay, into this solid block, which then activates this redstone dust to activate this piston twice. Oh, okay. So these solid blocks are also activating this pulse extender down here. I think that's how I set it up. Or is it? No, it's from this repeater into this block, which activates this, activating the piston, but also coming down to this pulse extender here. Okay. Glad that made sense. I've got the solid block to make sure this pulse extender does not interfere with this button emulation. It's pulse extender. Anyway. That was the ascension module. The descension module. Pulse extender is separate. We've got a max tick delay safety repeater. I think it needs to be max tick delay. So that's that. And then for the floor selection, activates this note block and these observers here into solid blocks, which activate these note blocks, carrying the signal down to the next floor, but also being read by these observers into this main line, going up into this repeater with the tick delay, into this pulse extender, signal reaching the main line here. And that's that. This is a hybrid. Yeah, hybrid, you saw these, you saw those. And lastly, the one with the modified Etho hopper clock with note blocks. This has pulse extender hooked into the ascension unit, but separate for the descension unit from this note block into this observer, being read into this observer. I don't think... No, it has no effect on this torch, or, well, negligible effect. From these two observers, we've got the redstone line here into this repeater. No tick delay needed into this main piston. Sticky piston, regular piston. Hoppers facing into each other, redstone block, however many items. Two comparators, redstone, dust on block, facing into the repeater, or piston. Goes into this block, deactivates this torch, deactivating the piston. It needs to be a piston because of how close I have these together, can't be a button. Floor selection. From this node block, we've got observers horizontally and vertically running into this main line for the pulse extender, and running up to the next floor. See here, next floor. The ascension unit. The descension unit signal is separate with almost max tick delay repeater for safety. And then for floor selection, got the button going to the node block, being read by these observers, going into solid blocks, activating these node blocks, being read by these observers vertically and horizontally. This one's kind of a mess, I think. This is the one... a little bit. Yeah, this one's kind of a mess. It might have been this one that was a mess. But for as compact as I was making these, it looks kind of confusing. From these node blocks, we've got the observers going up into these solid blocks with the redstone line. Redstone line activates this repeater. I don't think this needs a tick delay, but it's probably safer to have it. And then that just activates the modified etho hopper clock, and the signal is carried through this repeater here. Had an idea to fix that other one. This should work, right? Let me see. Yes, that works just fine. Making sure. So that activates the main line, and there you go. So that was floor selection. Now, I would have been happy with just this, but I took it a step further. As you can see, we've got buttons on top of each other. This was a new challenge in and of itself. This was a hybrid, this one's not. So, these all work. 4 5s. 4 5. 4 3. 4 3. 4 7. 4 7. There you go. Okay. All these the same. Indented entrance. This one has the pulse extender included. This one's separate. That one at the far end is a hybrid. Flat entrance. Same thing. This one's pulse extender included. Pulse extender separate. Hybrid. This one has the modified etho hopper clock. Alright, start with the end. Or this one. I'll start with the hybrid. I need to see that. Get the idea. So, we've got a big one here. Where to start? Start here. Press this button. Got the pulse extender included. Reading out of that note block, got 2 observers. Repeater with the tick delay into this pulse extender block with the redstone torch. Activating, deactivating this piston. Remember the tick delay. It's important. For the floor selection, okay, I don't know what that was. Oh. Wait. I think I know what that was. Yeah, I know what that was. Alright, let's see that again. There we go, all better. What that was, so what you can see here, we've got 2 comparators with the pulse extender. That's what I've been showing all this time. The best that you can extend this pulse extender specifically, is with 4 comparators. But with that, you need max tick delay on your repeaters. Both of these. That's how you would extend this pulse extender specifically. If you've got other pulse extenders you want to fit into these units, by all means. You know what you're doing, I assume. And now, try this again. So, this top row will activate 2 floors, as you can see. This bottom row, that was loud, but it activated all 3. Why was that loud? You can see this middle floor with the extended pulse extender? Well, you saw it. This is so damn loud. Oh, anyways. Okay, so, start with this middle line, or the top line. Behind that top line, we've got trapdoors, wooden trapdoors, with observers reading out of them, or it reads it twice. With a solid block into a note block. That solid block, is there anything above that? No, nothing above the solid block. Make sure there's, well, no, it's fine. Nothing above that solid block, except we've got the redstone line just out the back in between floors. And carrying the signal from this trapdoor to the observer, solid block, this redstone line. Got the note block here, into this observer, into this observer, into the next floor. That's to carry the signal. From this redstone line, we've got the main unit. Activating this note block, these 2 observers, the solid block with this tick delay on the repeater, solid block, feeding into this pulse extender. So that was this top layer here. The bottom layer, we have pistons. So this, what we needed from this unit, or from this design, was to make sure the signals don't overlap unnecessarily, or mostly independent. So, activating this piston pushes this observer, activating this line of observers to carry the signal up. But when this piston retracts, this observer activates again into this solid block, which activates this trapdoor, which is the top layer. And that activates the first two floors. On top of which, the 3rd floor is being activated from this line of observers and pistons. Now, from this observer to this observer to this observer, we have a piston here. That's to make sure we can carry the signal without interfering with the next floor of pistons and observers. This can extend out and activate the line from any other floor. We can't have another block here to prevent that from happening. So this is a piston to extend out and still carry the signal. Yeah, hope you see where I'm going with this. So that carries the signal up, and this activates top layer, bottom layer. Hope you were paying attention, because I don't know how to explain that a second time. And yeah, cut the signal when you need to stop at a certain floor. So you can see, we'll start here. Floor 3. Okay, we're going to floor 3. It's hard to see. It's actually impossible to see, but yeah. Did I already show this somewhere here? Probably did. Yeah, we'll show it here. So from this, we've got floor 3. That stops. Signal reaches the 2nd module, but it does not go any further than that. That's how you cut the signal for the bottom layer that takes another floor into account, it goes just a bit further with another piston. It doesn't need to be a piston, as long as the signal reaches this line here on the 3rd floor, or wherever you're not cutting the signal. But that's how you cut the signal, like that. For this, we'll see from this. Oh, we didn't discuss the descension unit yet. God, do I have to talk about all of these? My throat is getting so dry. Okay, let's try this. So we've got the pulse extender included here, safety repeater, 1 tick delay, pulse extender right here. You can see it, it's there. Yeah. So this top layer activates all 3. It's kind of loud, but you get the idea. Bottom layer is not loud. Activates 2 layers. Now, reading from that, start with the bottom layer. It's essentially the same. I think it is the same, pretty much, as this, just flipped upside down. So we've got, from this bottom layer, we've got a note block. Oh. Nope, never mind. Okay, we got a note block instead of a trapdoor. From that note block is being read by these observers. There's a solid block, which activates this redstone line, hooking into the main line, but also activating these note blocks, carrying the signal further down. See it, 2 observers. And then from this top layer, activating 3 layers, we've got the piston extending outward, carrying the signal to the bottom layer. But when this piston retracts, activating this observer again, it hooks into the other line, activating these 2 layers. So for these, this top layer is only activating the bottom layer that it's connected to, but also then hooking into this line of buttons here, the main line. Or, yeah, you get the idea, I hope. So that's that. That was with pulse extenders included. This is the pulse extender separate. We've got a button on this one. Leading from an observer to the sticky piston, pulling this block. We've seen this before. Redstone torch, cutting the signal here. And yeah, that's single floor use. Multiple floors. So this bottom layer activates 3 floors. This top layer activates 2 floors. Start with the top layer to a trapdoor read by this observer with the solid block running with this redstone line here. Redstone line goes to a note block with 2 observers reading down into a solid block, read out through a 1 tick or tick delay and a repeater solid block. Pulse extender right here. See it? Okay. And from that solid block here, which goes into the redstone line, got the note block here with the 2 observers carrying the signal up. And again, this is at minimum. This is the minimum height for these units. For all of the units I'm showing, these are all built at the minimum height. You can have multiple, you can have more blocks in between each floor. You just need to account for carrying the signal from each floor as you do. For this bottom layer, just activating these pistons, pushing these observers out and carrying the signal on the outer edge. And then retracting again to activate this trapdoor from this solid block for this inner layer. That activates 3 floors. And this activates 2 floors. See that? It's the ascension unit, you get the idea. For the descension unit, signal is separate from the pulse extender. Got a safety repeater here with a tick delay like that. See it? Great. I'm missing. Yeah, don't worry about that. Just forgot to. You need to make sure the trapdoor is folding towards you to keep the water from flowing. Yeah, you get the idea. So that's it. Safety repeater. For the floor selector, I think it's this one. It does 2 floors. This one does 3 floors. Yeah, all 3 are activated. In this bottom layer, we have the note block into an observer to a solid block, which runs this redstone line. With the repeater with a tick delay, solid block here, pulse extender right here. Solid block leading up into the main line here. From this solid block with the redstone dust, we've got the note block here, 2 observers carrying the signal down. For this top layer, we've got the piston pushing the observer, activating this line on the outside. When it retracts, it activates the inner line. Hope that makes sense. Gotta make sure these pistons are in the way, or pistons are here to carry the signal without interfering with this. This needs to extend from any other floor, and this needs to extend to carry the signal from floors above it or below it, depending on the unit. So yeah, and that was, these were both the indented entrances. And the one at the far end is a hybrid. Doesn't matter, you can mix and match whatever you want if you know what you're doing. Now we've got the, what is this? The flat entrance, right? With the pulse extender included. Start with that. Pulse extender, or note block, observer, solid block, tick delay on a repeater here into another solid block. I think from, no, okay. And from that repeater into this block with the pulse extender on top of it, into this block, which then activates this redstone torch, retracting the piston. Hope that makes sense. And for floor selection, bottom layer activates 3, top layer activates 2. Just showing. For this top layer, we've got trapdoor, read by this observer, into this solid block, which activates this note block, which carries the signal up from these observers. From this observer that's reading this trapdoor, we've got another observer horizontally into this solid block reading this redstone line into this trapdoor here, which is being read by this observer, which is being read by this observer, which is then going into this tick delay repeater, solid block, pulse extender right there. The signal being carried like that into this solid block, activating the trapdoor. You see it. For this bottom layer, got the pistons again. Sticky pistons with the observer activating this solid block, which activates this trapdoor into this observer, into a solid block, into another trapdoor, into an observer, into another trapdoor, into an observer. I have another layer of trapdoors here for, this video is long, isn't it? Another layer of trapdoors here to be carried. Yes, that's for the next floor. The next floor does the same. Extends this observer, solid block, trapdoor, carries the signal up. We've got doors here. This is just to save on space, I think. Or save on space and resources. As long as the signal reaches its intended destination, everything is good. We have a slab here. This is important actually. Make sure the signal does not interfere with these doors. So if this pulse extender is active, we don't want it affecting this door here, or wherever the dust is. And then we have solid blocks here with a line of redstone dust. It's being read by these observers here. Trapdoor, you get the idea. So that is the outer layer. And again, when this piston retracts, it allows for this signal to carry from any other floor, but also activate the inner layer. Okay, so that was the ascension module. And for the descension module, nothing down there. So, pulse extender is included. Again, I forgot to. I don't know why. But, yeah. Okay. Got a repeater here. Tick delay, safety repeater. Signal coming out the back, down this here. Down another step to this pulse extender. Got a slab here. Make sure it doesn't interfere with the lines we have out the back. That is the pulse extender. And for floor selection, this top layer does 3, bottom layer does 2. Bottom layers, we trapdoor observers going down into this solid block, activating these trapdoors here to carry the signal through these observers here, down. And then from this observer, reading out of this one, we have a solid block here, activating this redstone line. Now, these need to be slabs to make sure this does not interfere with the trapdoors we have out the side there. And then we have an observer at the back reading this redstone line. Down. So this observer is being read by this observer into solid block here with the tick delay repeater hooked into the pulse extender. For the top layer of buttons, the pistons, sticky pistons, pushing these observers that would otherwise carry a signal down or out to activate this solid block, activating these trapdoors, carrying the signal further down. And then when the piston retracts again, it activates this solid block, triggering the inner layer. And yeah, cut the signal. I'm sure you're paying attention. That was... okay, we're almost done. We're almost done. That was the pulse extender included, pulse extender not included, hybrid at the very end, and this one's also a hybrid. No, it's not. What is this? What was I looking at? Oh. This was the pulse extender included. This is the pulse extender not included, flat entrance. Okay. So, from this note block, we've got an observer. Tick delay on this repeater into this pulse extender with another repeater here. Solid block, redstone torch used to power this piston. Deactivate the torch, piston. You get the idea. What I've got. Top layer does 2, bottom layer does 3. Top layer, got the trapdoor being read by this observer, going to this solid block, activating this note block, carrying the signal up with these observers. From this observer, being read by another observer, we've got the solid blocks here with redstone dust on top that activates this trapdoor being read by this observer into this line here, out by 2, down, down again. From this block we've got another repeater with a tick delay into a solid block here, with the pulse extender here. Got a slab for this part. Make sure the signal doesn't interfere with anything up top, like this trapdoor. It's modular. Gotta remember that. So, from that signal from this pulse extender into this solid block here, carrying into this other pulse extender, and that's the inner layer. That pushes the piston and pulse extender or observer into this solid block, triggering these trapdoors, carrying the signal upwards. Solid block, trapdoor, observer, trapdoor, observer, solid block, carries on. Into solid block with the redstone line. You see it. And that is the ascension module. So the descension module. I keep forgetting this. The signal is separate from the pulse extender. We've got a tick delay on this safety repeater. Top layer does 3 floors. Bottom layer only do 2 floors. For the bottom layer, we've got the trapdoors, observer, another observer reading out. But for this, we've got a solid block activating these trapdoors and carrying the signal down. From this observer, the solid block, into the redstone here. These need to be slabs, and this needs to be an observer reading this redstone line. From that observer, we got another observer here reading out into this solid block with the tick delay on this repeater heading up into the pulse extender. Right here, this needs to be a slab. This pulse extender leads into this line here, which leads into the main line there. This block needs to be here to prevent this signal from working its way backwards. And for the top layer, piston extending this observer into the solid block, activating this trapdoor. Observer, solid block, trapdoor. Carries the signal down to the bottom layer. Like so, like so. It's pretty much the same. All these designs are modular. They just work, to quote someone. The top and the bottom layer, these are both separate from the pulse extenders. This one's the hybrid. Final, in the home stretch, this one has the modified Etho hopper clock. Okay, pulse extender included with the ascension module. Pulse extender separate from the descension module. From this note block here, we have an observer, no tick delay on this repeater, into this redstone line here. Why? Ah, that's why. So, this redstone dust here is read by this observer here. From that observer, activates this signal here, which these need to be slabs, redstone dust, which gives this piston a block update. It's the modified Etho hopper clock. Got a sticky piston, redstone block, regular piston, 2 hoppers leading into each other with items inside, 2 comparators reading out of these hoppers, solid block, redstone dust, leading into the pistons. Block update for that activates this, which then activates this block, turning off this redstone torch, retracting this piston. Okay, now for floor selection. Top layer does 2, bottom layer does 3. It's 3, see it. Okay, top layer, trapdoor, observer, observer, I think this is the one that was well, they're all kind of complicated. Observer, observer, solid block, redstone line. Into this trapdoor, being read by this observer, into the main line here. From the trapdoor, observer, solid block, activating these note blocks, getting carried up by these observers here. Carry the signal upwards. From this bottom, sticky piston pushes the observer up, activates this block, activates this trapdoor, carries the signal up with this observer, solid block, trapdoor. Observer, trapdoor, observer, solid block, doors. Got doors here. Got more observers, and we've got redstone line here into this main line here. Don't know why that's there. I don't remember. Maybe it was important, maybe not. Hang on, let's see. What's that, ascension module? Yeah. Ascension module, what do we have? What do we have up here? Nope, okay. That's fine. Yeah. So, yeah. One layer of dust. Main line here. Clock update, piston. And for this, you might want to, for the ascension module at least, you want to have different number of items depending on the floor, or depending on how many blocks you have in between floors. It's you can change the delay however you need it. That's the beauty of this. I think that was everything for this. Again, works just fine. All of these work just fine. If they don't, let me know. If you've built one of these and they don't work for some reason, if you follow the instructions to the letter, whatever instructions I've given here, yeah, let me know if you're having issues. I can try and resolve it. Why do I keep forgetting to do this? Descension module. Separate from the pulse extender. Got a safety repeater here. Tick delay. Now, floor selection. Top floor does 3. That's 3 layers there. Bottom layer does 2. It's being weird. Don't worry about it. It's just going to be that way. For the bottom layer, got the trapdoor being read by these observers. This observer, this block, and this trapdoor carrying the signal down. For this observer, into this solid block, into this redstone line, these need to be slabs with an observer at the back there. This observer getting read by this observer into a solid block with the repeater here. No tick delay. No tick delay. Into this solid block. And that block updates this piston here, triggering the clock, or the pulse extender. And we've got a block here to... what is this block doing? I don't remember, but it's probably important to some extent. Yeah, okay. That was the bottom layer. For this top layer, we've got the sticky piston with the observer, solid block, trapdoor. Observer, solid block, trapdoor. Don't think... no. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, you get the idea. Carries the signal down, like so. And that's the descension module and the ascension module with the modified Etho Hopper clock. Okay, that is roughly 32 different units so far, and I would have been satisfied with just that, but now we have the final unit. For anyone that's watching this video, maybe you already saw my previous video that showcased this unit. This is 3 layers of buttons. This was a lot of work to put together. It's a lot of trial and error. But here we are. Yeah. I'm just gonna discuss the redstone. If you saw the preview video I showed, then good for you. We'll start with the redstone. So, in order to make this work, I needed 2 different modules side by side, because I couldn't use the same module next to itself. It would cause interference with the redstone. So we have 2 modules, and you one after the other, depending on how many floors you want to extend it. So for the Ascension module, we have for the observers, we need this piston, sticky piston, pulls this block with this observer reading out. We have a layer of lights and a layer of note blocks. I'm calling this a buffer because that's what I'm doing with it. What this is making sure signals, with all of these multi-level units with buttons on top of each other, the most important thing to keep in mind was making sure signals didn't overlap unnecessarily. That's what made this unit so difficult to design, because you can't have one button activating one line, but then another button activating 3 lines, and another button activating 3 other lines. You'd end up at the top floor every time. So, yeah, making sure they didn't cross unnecessarily was imperative to this project. So this activates this piston, pulls this block down, observer's reading it here. Oh, as I was saying, this buffer is important to make sure the signals don't overlap, but also to make sure there aren't too many signals going through the line at one time, because that can cause a syncing issue, I guess, with the redstone and pistons. But also, you need a way to pull the signal from these lines to have it connect to the pulse extender that manages each floor. So from that, you have observers reading out of the lights, as you can see here. So we've got 9 lights right here. If the signal from this middle part, the middle light will also activate all the lights adjacent to it, meaning this observer here can read the light and activate the pulse extender. This light, you can read through that, just making sure that observers are reading signal from any light that's outside of it. You can arrange that however you need to. For these modules specifically, you need to be careful with how you arrange the redstone. We've got an observer reading out of this layer of lights here into another observer, redstone dust here, into this block, activating this light with another observer, which then carries the signal to... You can have whatever pulse extender you want, really, for this kind of thing. I have the modified Ether Hop pulse extender because it's just easier to work with many tall floors. Doesn't need a tick delay on the repeater, I don't think. But yeah, so that's what the lights are for. This note block is important as a buffer, so it only carries a signal once. Or, yeah, only once. I think... No, okay. I'll get to that later. I don't think it's this. Yeah, it's not this. It's Probably this one. Yeah, it is. Okay. From these, we carry the signal up, and to make sure the signals get through to the next floor, well, we'll look at each button individually. We'll start with this one. Goes up, reading up, 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 into the next line that has the same 2 observers, 1 sticky piston, same as down here. For this, got a sticky piston from this observer here, pulling this block, changing this wall block. Now this can be a wall block, or actually, never mind. Yeah, this wall block will change its state, which is then read by this observer, reading into the main line here, going up, and then activating this sticky piston, which would pull this wall block down, activating the next line, and so on and so forth. So that is this button here. Carries the signal like so. For this top button, we got this lamp here. This was important because if this were an observer, it would activate this piston. Don't ask me how, but that's how it does it. So this needs to be a block. This needs to be a lamp block, basically, into an observer, into a solid block, which then, as you can see, this needs to be a solid block so that this observer cannot read that there's a change to this block happening. This cannot read anything from this block. But this observer, making a redstone signal, will reach this dispenser here. It could probably be something else, but I have it as a dispenser. And this observer will read the dispenser, carrying the signal up from this no block observer into another piston, sticky piston, with another observer. When this piston extends, push the observer up, activating this block here, which then activates the dispenser, carrying the signal up further. So all of these are completely separate lines. They do not interfere with each other. And they activate from multiple floors with no issue. Redstone doesn't move down, redstone doesn't move across. It's all independent of each other. For the second part of this unit, depending on how many floors you have, if you've got 2 layers, you want 1 of each. If you only have 1, either will suffice. But for this, we've got the second module. For this bottom button, we've got the lamp. This is important because reasons I don't remember, but from this observer, we got a sticky piston pushing this block up. And this was interesting to me because I don't know when this functionality was added, but this observer can read when this note block changes its tone. When this wool block is pushed just underneath this note block, it changes the information, like the tone that the note block plays. The observer is able to read that. When it's removed, it also is able to read that. Like I said, this was a very interesting discovery to me, and it made this whole project a little more simple and doable. I don't think I would have been able to do it without this. But that's the bottom button, carries the signal up. It's offset from these other lights and note blocks because otherwise it would cause issues. If we had this light block here, it would activate this note block. This wouldn't activate that, but you get the idea. You need it to be separate. Got 2 observers here, light, note block, observer, and then we've got the sticky piston from the layer. That. For this middle button, middle button, we have this piston extending this block out for this fence post being red
by this observer. Changes the state of the fence post. So you can see there. So that activates into this line here with another sticky piston, pulling this fence post down, activating, carrying the signal. Now for this, if you're paying attention, I said earlier, you want to keep these signals as separate as possible. For this top button, I could not do that, but that's okay because I cut the signal appropriately. This top button activates both of these pistons, effectively activating 2 lines. Notice I said 2 and not 3. That is because... Nope, never mind, I lied. It's activating all 3. This note block is reading the change from this trapdoor. So this line is reading because obviously the trapdoor is moved. This line is reading because this block has changed this fence post. And this line is reading because this trapdoor has changed the note of this note block, I think. Let me try that again. Yeah, it's activating all 3 lines. This is fine because from what I've set up in my design, this top line will get you to the top floor. As long as these 2 buttons don't activate this line, there is no issue. We cut the signal from these 2 lines at the appropriate floor, then we'll get to the floor we need to get to. And this button here can activate all the floors, and it'll just get you to the top floor, or whatever you have it set to. That's how that's functioning. And again, they're all independent. They all reset appropriately. They all function flawlessly. That is the Ascension module. And you just want observers reading out of these lamp blocks. You want to cut the signal appropriately. Make sure it doesn't go too far. I'll leave that up to you because I'm tired. This has been a long video. This has been a very extensive project. But now we'll talk about the Descension module. Essentially the same thing. It's worth noting I have 3 here. That is because the module I have fixed into the Descension module here is one unique module. By that I mean I can stack this next to itself. That is this right here. What I did not know when I made this was that it only works 50% of the time. By that I mean, depending on what axis you build it on, it will either function or it won't function. This functions on, I think it was east to west. I don't know what axis that was, but east to west I think it was. But if you were to build this north-south, it would not work. This specifically. So I think it was... So this piston activates. However, if you were to build it north to south, this piston would activate instead, and not this one. But then, maybe I'll just build it. Let me see here. Grab that, 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 and that. And let's see. We'll build this north to south. That. Solid block. That. I think we have another piston. Observer there. Button. I think that there. I'll put a solid block there. Or down there. Put that there. I'll put this here. So this activates pulling this lamp up. What happens if I do this? This activates pulling this block out. But this also activates. So you see, this module only works 50% of the time. When I figured that out, I needed to redesign it. So this still functions if you build it on the right axis. You can use it if you want, you don't need to. I never took this one out because it's a lot of effort to build. So these are the other modules. Or maybe I'll just talk about this one first. Yeah. So this top button, piston pulls this up, changing the state of this wall block. You can see there's a small section right here that changes, and this observer detects that. So, the observer reads it, goes into this lamp, goes into this note block, goes into this observer. You don't need a block. Actually, you should not have a block here. This needs to be empty space. This observer still activates this piston. You can't have a block here, otherwise it would activate this trapdoor here. And this is the piston that you saw, pulling this lamp block up. For the next layer, this piston pulls this block out, changing the state of this wall block. Observer reads it, activates this trapdoor. This doesn't need to be a trapdoor, it can be anything. I have it here because it speeds up the signal processing. Observer, lamp, note block, another observer, into a sticky piston that pulls the wall block up, activating the next line, continuing the signal. And that was the middle button. For the bottom button, this is two observers into these lamp blocks. This lamp block will not change, or just activating this lamp block will not change this wall block, meaning this signal will not carry. However, signal will carry to this lamp block, activating this observer, and carrying the signal down that way into this trapdoor, which is read by this observer, and then activates this solid block, activating this lamp block, and carrying the signal further down. And again, they all work on any floor, like so. Flawless. So for these, these two modules should work on any axis, so I'd probably just recommend these if you don't know what axes you're working with. So, top button. It looks weird, but it works. Don't worry about it. Lamp block, observer. So this is activating both of these, but this observer is not causing any issues with any other line. This block is already being pushed out of the way, and this piston is still extended and retracted long enough that this piston doesn't do anything, because they deactivate at the same time. Anyway, block extends, changes the state of this wall block into this observer carrying the signal down. Again, you don't want solid blocks here because it would activate unnecessarily. If you had a solid block here, it would activate this piston. You could probably have a solid block here, but let's just leave it empty, save on resources, that sort of thing. Activating this piston. Actually, no, keep this empty because it might activate this piston. So activate this piston and it carries the signal down. You see that? Yep. So that was the top button. Now this is where things get interesting. This piston, actually, both of these pistons are activating. However, right. Okay. So we've got two signals triggering at the same time. This changing the block state of this wall, activating this line here, and let's start with this one actually. That's better. So when this piston extends, this bottom button pulls this trapdoor, changing signal on this observer. You want this trapdoor on the top layer of a block. You do not want it on the bottom layer, otherwise it will activate, or it will change the state of this wall block. You don't want that. But it will activate this observer, pushing the signal down into this empty space, into this piston here, which will pull this trapdoor, again carrying the signal down. That is the bottom button. And for this top button, it activates that as well. We have two signals activating. But that's fine, because as long as you're cutting the signal appropriately, this bottom button activates one line, this top button activates one line, and this middle button will activate 2 lines. As long as there's 2 buttons that have separate lines that are not triggered by anything else, there's no issue as long as you cut the lines appropriately for each floor. So, middle button, activating 2 lines. The one we're focusing on right now is the solid block, changing the block state of this wall block, observer, trapdoor, observer, line, into this sticky piston here, pulling the wall block up, carrying the signal down. That's this module. Now this module, they work side by side. They need to be designed that way, because otherwise there would be wires crossing and nothing would work. So let's look down this layer. Again, I can't stress this enough. Everything here is necessary the way it is. So this piston is here. This is a piston because it needs to change for this left line. There needs to be a signal. There needs to be a way to carry the signal. That's what this piston is doing. Pushing this block down, changing the state of this wall block, and carrying the signal down. This needs to be a piston, sticky piston. From this sticky piston here, push this sticky piston. This is changing the wall block here, which is being read by this observer. You do need a solid block here to keep this wall block as it is, because this trapdoor here is also changing the state of the block. But it can't do that unless this connection point here is visible. So you need a solid block here. Everything here is necessary. Well, most of it. Let's just assume everything here is necessary. So that changes the block state, trapdoor carrying the signal down, and as you saw, trapdoor again being activated from this line. I hope this isn't too confusing, because I'm getting a little confused too. So this middle button, it's a lamp read by an observer into this solid block, activating this trapdoor, changing signal from this observer down, trapdoor here. Now, I have a trapdoor here just to speed up the process, but if you also do the same thing, you want to make sure it opens to the right like that. If you have it opening up this way, it's going to change the state of this wall block. So you need to make sure it's opening that way. It doesn't need to be trapdoor, but I have it there anyway. And from there, it goes down into this sticky piston, which pulls this trapdoor up, carrying the signal further down. Okay, now for this bottom button, is activating this door. This door is changing the state of this wall block, carrying the signal down and down, which then activates this sticky piston, pushing this solid block into this wall block, again changing the state of the wall block. It took so long to design all of this, just being as an amateur as I was, but I'm so happy that I came up with these designs. If you know of any water elevators that make use of this, of these mechanics, of this functionality, I couldn't find anything online. If you know of anything, if any YouTube videos exist, do let me know, and I'll make sure to link them in the video. But yeah, changing the wall, carrying the signal down, and that is this other module. I hope I included all of that. If not, there's plenty of footage for you to look at them, to make sure you've got an idea of what state everything is in, all that good stuff. Okay, I think that's about it. I hope that's about it. I hope everything... Wow, this has been 2 hours of footage. I really hope my computer can manage this. But yeah, I'm calling this a first draft. Even for a first draft, I didn't think this would be 2 hours. I may have to rethink my final draft. I hope this was helpful to anyone that watched this. I hope to anyone that actually watched all the way through this, props to you. Thank you. Let's see what happens. Let's see what comes next.